Roland Martin Unfiltered. Michigan certifies the election in that state for Joe Biden. Trump loses again. All of those efforts to get Republicans to stop it, it did not work. Also, he loses in the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. That is, the loser.com loses again and again and again. Trump, pack your bags. Your ass is out of the White House. The Georgia Board of Elections, they are trying to sneak through a new rule that could block new registrations ahead of the Senate runoff by saying you need to own a car. Investigative journalist Greg Pallas joins us with the details. Black Voter Matters is headed to Georgia with a new voter initiative. Can't stop, won't stop. We'll talk with co-founder Cliff Albright on the show. Plus, with the latest election news, including all of the efforts of Trump trying to steal it. It ain't gonna work, player. You gone. Plus, a Thanksgiving holiday approaches. Folks are lined up outside testing sites across the country, hoping to get negative results so they can spend the holidays with their families. Coronavirus is rampaging all across the country with the latest information, plus a third drug company releasing a vaccine. How soon will these vaccines be available to the general public? Plus, Donald Trump is threatening to veto a military bill unless they remove a provision to get rid of bases named after Confederate military leaders. He wants the white supremacist names to continue on the basis. Democrats have some guts and call his bluff on the veto. Plus, Joe Biden nominates a black woman to be ambassador to the United States, to the United Nations. The question is, has he named enough sisters so far? Plus, questions are being raised in the shooting of two Florida teens that the newly released video contradicts the police version of what happened. Plus, the author of a new book and looks at how racism erodes the mind, body, and spirit. Plus, in our Crazy Ass White People segment, we introduce you to gentrification Karen, where a brother checks her for going after a black 8-year-old kid. Folks, it is time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the biz, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, y'all. It's Roland Martin, rolling with Roland now. He's funky, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now. Martin.
Republican efforts to steal the election continues. First, Michigan certifies the results for Joe Biden. Pennsylvania Supreme Court says, hell no, Donald Trump. Your legal arguments are nonsense. But in Georgia, where we have two critical runoff races featuring Pastor Raphael Warnock against Kelly Loeffler and then John Ossoff versus David Perdue, Republicans are doing their best to try to steal that election by purging people who just voted in November. Yeah, that's actually happening before us. Already, 750,000 absentee ballots have been requested in Georgia. Let's get right to this thing with investigative journalist Greg Pallas. Greg, the latest effort. So explain to people what's going on now, how Republicans are trying to first purge people. We already seen the reports who just voted. I mean, 3 weeks ago, but now they're trying to stop people by saying, oh, you need to have a car registered in Georgia to vote in the runoff?
I know, it sounds insane, and I hope the wonderful Cliff Albright, I do work with Black Voters Matter Fund in Georgia. He may not know this yet, but Cliff and Roland, this is the strangest thing. My team down there at midnight on Saturday, gets a notice from the Secretary of State of Georgia, a guy named Brad Raffensperger. His name really is Perger. He took Brian Kemp's place. He's a Republican, frankly, a Republican stooge. And he issued a new ruling, a proposed rule, that would say that you can't register if you don't have a car registered in Georgia and you've proven that you've paid the registration tax on the car. Now, let me be very careful here and how this works. Now, obviously, no state can require you to buy a car to vote. That would be
That's
the
a
most
poll tax.
Poll tax. That would be the most expensive poll tax in world history. What they are saying is rather they will use the fact that any county election supervisor can use the fact that you don't have a car or you haven't paid the Georgia registration tax as proof that you're not a Georgian, that you don't live in Georgia. And they can therefore, listen to this, they will delay adding your registration to the voter records. By the way, December 7th is the last day to register there. They'll delay your registration until you get a hearing. A hearing. Now, usually you have to have 30 days notice on hearings, and therefore, most people who attempt to register who don't have a car may find that they are told that they have to show up at a hearing in 30 days, which will likely be after the January 5 election.
Okay, I'm confused here. I'm really confused here. So what happens with a person who doesn't own a car? I mean...
They withhold you. They take your registration, but they don't add your name to the list.
Is there a single state in America that requires you to register a car to vote?
No, and in fact, this is not the first time that the state of Georgia has tried this gambit. I can tell you one voter that got hit by this a couple years ago, my daughter, who was a voter in Savannah. And now understand, it doesn't mean you can't vote. What they might try to do is say that not having a car registered in Georgia means that you don't live here. What the Secretary of State office is claiming is that this is to stop people fraudulently registering in Georgia because of the hot Senate race. This will determine control of the U.S. Senate. So they're afraid. They say they're afraid of people coming into Georgia and simply registering for this runoff. Well, number one, if you are moving to Georgia, you can register for this runoff. But our person Terry Manpearl on the ground there was on the call with the Secretary of State and asked, do you have a single case, even one, of a fraudulent voter, someone from out of state voting in the Georgia election in November? Do you have a case of a single voter? Remember, a lot of people have already mailed in their ballots. Do you have a case of a single voter who's mailed in a ballot that isn't a Georgia resident, an absentee ballot? Now, is there one case? So you're going to stop thousands of – now, who gets affected by this law? Again, they don't stop you from registering. They just withhold your registration possibly till after the election. And by the way, with Cliff, I have no doubt we're going to be fighting this. Believe me, we're going to be fighting this. So what they're saying is that now who's affected? Students, like my daughter, she didn't have a car in Georgia. She has a New York driver's license because on vacations she would drive in New York. So they try to block her from voting. She went through the process and saved her vote in Savannah. But how many, like she said, there's almost no students who are willing to fight this and get registered. In addition, of course, who's the biggest group that's affected? People who don't have cars, urban, low-income voters. In other words, voters of color. And by the way, the color is generally blue. So they know if they can knock out voters trying to register in Atlanta, new voters, people, remember, they, like you just said, they purge voters, so you have to re-register. We have a site, Save My Vote, 2020.org, where you can see if you've been purged from the Georgia voter rolls. If you are, there's a button, click and re-register. Again, try to do it immediately. Don't wait till December 7th because Georgia, there is a delay factor in Georgia. Even if you have a car, they still have a delay process in Georgia. So please check your registration right now, no matter what, and re-register. Believe me, and by the way, if you don't have a car registered in Georgia and you live there and you're a student or you're low income, you use a bus, or you're high income and you use a bus, you don't have a car.
Right.
Don't let that stop you from registering. Please register. Have all the ID and proof of residence that you can to make sure that no one challenges you, because it's also selective. They're making it so that not everyone, in other words, not necessarily white suburban people, are going to be asked, oh, you don't have a car?
Right.
Because after all, you have families where the car is registered in the husband's name, not the wife's name, or the opposite. So it's very selective because they get to choose whom they challenge. This is really, really dangerous stuff. And when we first, so again, midnight Saturday, and then they had a meeting to vote it into the rules at 8 a.m. this morning, Monday, 8 a.m. And after a midnight notice. This is ugly stuff. So what they did was when the pressure came down, they said, oh, we're not going to make it a rule. We'll make it a guidance.
Nah. When you make it a guidance, that's a rule. And so, but this is what I keep telling people, the kind of games Republicans play. And guess what? The people who I've been calling out, these black Republicans in Georgia who have been silent, who are watching these people try to screw black people voting.
Yes, I'm very concerned. Look, we know it's Jim Crow. You can talk about, oh, the fraudulent voters. Where are these fraudulent voters lined up at the border to march into Georgia to vote? Okay? As Cliff can tell you, working there, it's hard to get people to vote once, let alone twice. It's hard, no, people aren't driving in from Wisconsin to vote in Georgia.
Yep.
It's not happening. They're not sending in fraudulent ballots. They had 5 million ballots. They couldn't show us one fraudulent ballot, not one. But I can tell you that they've disqualified a lot of ballots. And of course, we issued the report, which was issued with Black Voters Matter Fund.
Got it.
And on 198,000 Georgians removed wrongly from the voter rolls, based on a phony purge list.
Got it.
This is really serious stuff. And by the way, watch this space. We're going to be taking action. I don't want to say what it is, but believe me, we're not letting this thing go. We're not letting this thing go. This is pure Jim Crow. I don't care who you vote for, but don't tell black people, don't tell students you can't vote. No.
All right.
That's over.
Greg Palast, keep us up to date what's going on. We'll keep pushing the information out and supporting you in all that you do.
See you at gregpalast.com.
Thank you very much, sir. All right, folks. Again, the breaking news is that in the state of Michigan, they have certified the election results a 3-to-1 vote. A Republican chose not to go along with that particular group, which means that the election in Michigan certified by that board of canvassers. Also, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court knocked down the latest Trump challenge. But not only that, guess who finally decided to do her damn job? Emily Murphy, the head of the GSA. Go to my iPad, please. This was a letter that she has sent to Joe Biden. Joe Biden, as the administrator of the U.S. General Services Administration, I have the ability under the Presidential Transition Act of 1963, as amended, to make certain post-election resources and services available to assist in the event of a presidential transition. She goes on and on and on, blah, 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 blah. To be clear, I did not receive any direction to delay my determination. Yeah, right. I did, however, receive threats online, by phone, and by mail directed at my safety, my family, my staff, even my pets, in an effort to coerce me into making this determination prematurely. Even in the face of thousands of threats, I always remain committed to upholding the law. Whatever. Then she writes, contrary to media reports and insinuations, my decision was not made out of fear or favoritism. Whatever. I strongly believe that the statute requires that the GSA administrator ascertain, not impose, the apparent president-elect. Again, more BS, blah, 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 blah. This does not have to be a 2-page letter. She then says that, of course, they're going to be making available $6.3 million to the Biden transition team. In addition, $1 million is authorized to provide appointee orientation sessions and a transition directory. So all the rest of this stuff is signed by Emily Murphy, whatever the hell. Let's go to my panel here, talk about all the latest developments that's been going on, folks, in this busy day and busy weekend. Dr. Avis Jones, the Weaver political analyst, Mustafa Santiago Ali, PhD, former senior advisor for environmental justice, EPA, and then later we'll have Rena Shaw, the Lincoln Project Women's Coalition. Go to you, Mustafa. You've worked for federal government. First of all, a lot of different things are going on here. Let's first go to the GSA. Emily Murphy, she ain't fooling nobody. Emily Murphy, bottom line is she was doing Trump's bidding here. They did not want to say that Joe Biden was the president-elect. But after what Michigan did and Pennsylvania, Donald Trump, no options. Sucker, you're gone.
Yeah, I mean, they know what the rules are. They know how they should be moving forward. There was intentionality in this. Everyone knows it. The intentionality was to, continue to slow down, hopefully run out the clock on the other side and find, some fertile ground for the foolishness that they were trying to move forward with. And, in all the administrations that I worked in, both Democrat and Republican, there was always a peaceful and respectful transition of power, understanding, how difficult it is, all these issues that folks are focusing on, and to make sure that the new incoming administration has the information so that they can, hit the ground running, if you will. So for the GSA to play these games, we know where the direction was coming from, but they were putting people's lives in danger each day that they weren't allowing, the incoming Biden administration to do their job, to be prepared, to help to get the steps in place. So I'm glad that they finally got here, but it took a lot of pressure to make folks just to do the right thing. My grandmother says, when you know better, do better. They knew better. It's a shame that it took them this long to do better.
You got people who talk about, oh, it's the law. No, it's not, Avis. The reality is this here. She was playing games. Joe Biden was a president-elect. Donald Trump couldn't overturn anything. And these were the games they were playing, pure and simple. That's what happened when you're dealing with a narcissistic, petty, let's just go ahead and say it, a man who was 100% bitch-assness.
I couldn't say it better myself. But absolutely, she was part of this whole grand delusion in which has been, I would believe, I would call it a coordinated action, not only involving the president, but a lot of his cronies all around the country, including individuals who may not necessarily be included in any collusion per se and what he's trying to do, which is I would call a coup, an attempted coup. But you also have countless Republicans who have been too cowardice to even call a thing, right? They've been allowing this to continue. And so when she finally comes up and does this, I'm thinking, well, it's about time. But I'm also wondering if it has something to do with the fact that she was supposed to testify on Capitol Hill. And maybe she just wanted to make sure that this thing was right before that happened, because she knew what she was doing was outside the boundaries of what she was supposed to be doing. There was no way she could have justified that in front of elected officials.
Rena, these folks are pure trash. We're seeing it. We're seeing how Trump simply cannot handle losing, can't do it gracefully, never was going to do it. That's just simply how he is. And Republicans have allowed this nonsense to go on for the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose we shouldn't be surprised because this nonsense has gone on the past 4 years, if you really stretch it, 5. So what I really believe we see here is a political appointee who didn't have the moral courage to do the right thing until push really came to shove. And it's my home base congressman right now, Jerry Connolly, a Democrat here in Virginia, who oversees a committee in which Emily Murphy has to report to. And so I think he put out a great thread for anybody who's interested on Twitter the other day, really explaining what so many Americans don't know, that this is very much a political appointment that she has. She is a Trump loyalist. And as I put out today on Twitter, I said, Trump loyalists need to realize one thing, that they will never get his loyalty in return. That is the bottom line. So maybe some of them are waking up to it, but this was about our country. This was about our process. This was about something so much bigger than Trump. And it's a shame that people really couldn't understand that this is not just unheard of. This does not happen in modern presidential era at all. But the reality is that you put our country in a unique position at which not just our adversaries, but our allies feel like there's pure chaos on the ground. And I don't know if that's part of a long game. Look, I mean, with Trump, it sometimes takes time to be able to see that. I do think there is something of a strategy here he's got in mind that has yet to reveal itself. But I think what I really saw in people like Emily Murphy and Republicans coming to the side of Trump and saying, we shouldn't let Biden have access, they were really, frankly, being hypocrites. They weren't understanding that national security is the one issue that they harp on over and over again. They'll do it right up until January. And that election in Georgia, the Senate election, Republicans love to hammer home national security. Well, how rich of it that they would put our country in such great chaos and put our national security on the line by not allowing Biden to have what he is frankly entitled to.
Yeah, she didn't want to have to go before the courts. Let's talk about, of course, what is taking place. Them losing left and right. Now they're trying to attack the folks in Georgia. They have certified their election results there. Michigan has certified their election results. Pennsylvania's on their way. So, look, they got no play here. Then, of course, we saw the Trump people over the weekend fire a crazy, deranged, nutcase attorney, Sidney Powell. Mustafa, these people are sick and demented.
Sidney Powell, Rudy Giuliani. I'm at a loss for words with these folks because it's like they're operating from another planet. I mean, President Trump has struck out 3 times and more, actually. But I mean, after 3 times, it's really time for you to give it up. You got a life after this. You'll still have people who will follow you and believe, the conspiracy theories and other things that you've been pumping into our country over the last 4 years. So it's just time to move on. You can't continue to lose court case after court case. Sometimes, actually, some of the judges was pissed off that you actually brought some of this stuff in front of them, and they actually explained that to the attorneys that were in charge of the cases, that you're literally wasting the court's time. So, it's time to go. You can go on down the street there to Walmart or wherever, get your bags, and go ahead and move on.
That as simple as that. And what you're dealing with, again, you're dealing with sore losers, including some of these trolls run our YouTube account. And it's just real simple. Y'all lost. Suck it up. You lost, Avis.
Yeah, but they're still engaged in shenanigans. I mean,
Yep.
they're trying to do yet another recount in Georgia. They are right now in the process of a recount in Wisconsin, but it's not a statewide recount, of course. It's a recount that specifically focuses on the areas like, Milwaukee, where you'll have a disproportionate number of Black people. They're looking to recount just that small area of the state and then have their cronies there that are, in essence, challenging each and every vote, trying to throw out as many votes as humanly possible. This is really an attempted coup. I just feel like language is very important. We don't need to sort of mask what's going on here. He is trying to take away the vote specifically and disproportionately of Black people all around this country so that he can, quote unquote, win. That is really what he's attempting to do. If he would get anything to go in his favor, that's what would happen. And so I really think that what's going on here shows the importance of being able to strengthen the Voting Rights Act when the Biden-Harris administration gets into office. That needs to be a one top priority. And in order for that to happen, we need the Senate, because we know that a Republican-controlled Senate is not going to let something like that move. And so this is a critically important. I don't think that we've seen our voting rights be attacked so fervently and so boldly since the end of Jim Crow. It is just disgusting to see, and we have to fight back.
And again, they lost. And my whole deal is take this ass whooping like a man, Trump.
He can't do it, Roland. He can't do it at all. Bottom line. I mean, look at who he's got for his legal defense. Rudy Giuliani, who hasn't been in court in some 3 decades? He hasn't fought a case in court in over 3 decades, I believe. Sidney Powell, who was one time respected, I believe, but really showed her true colors of every shade of crazy at that press conference. That was really disheartening. And the only reason she's on the outs with the Trump campaign is because Tucker Carlson called her to the carpet. That's the only reason. So I think what's at the root here, and this is something that I think really deserves a longer conversation as we move along in these next weeks and months. I mean, this is obviously a tough time. This past 3 weeks has been extremely tough for many Americans who watch and who trust our system, to feel like blow after blow. Like, how can this guy still have a case? I get a lot of right-wing media in my inbox every day. I get multiple bits of it. I don't just get text messages, I get newsletters. And so I see what they're reading. I mean, my career on the right, I'm still very much a conservative, albeit a small C one, but I see what today's Republicans are reading, and it's scary stuff. These newsletters are more like, really Reddit threads. It's stuff like Alan Dershowitz says that Trump still has 3 pathways outlined in the Constitution to still
I
win.
don't give a damn what Alan Dershowitz is a hack who, first of all, take your Jeffrey Epstein loving ass on. I can't. I'm so sick of that punk, and who's a Trump lackey as well.
Yeah, but these are the people they push forward. As Sidney Powell, Alan Dershowitz, Rudy. These are people who don't have their sense anymore, and they're still revered. They're still in high regard because they've been given a post by Trump to say, "Hey, take this and run." If that doesn't tell the average person how Looney Tunes the whole defense of it is, the fact that he cannot concede, like just truly what is in poor fashion. This is really what it comes down to, is that history books will not treat him kindly. But I see what's happening already. I see this setup. I see how the right-wing media complex is going to play this. They're going to continue to make money off of the clicks that they'll get from the Trump base of supporters saying that Emily Murphy waited until the day that, Michigan said this. And there's still a case out there in Wisconsin, by the way. It's not statewide. Like Ava said, when you read the details, the average person knows there's nothing here. But what they continue to sell to their base is for profit. It's this fake narrative that there's been an election that's stolen, and it's Black and brown people that are in the way, and they are the people who are trying to subvert the will of real Americans who love freedom and liberty like you and me. That's the message I get every day.
Oh, absolutely.
Look, lots more of it.
The right-wing media apparatus, Newsmax, OANN, all of these sites, they are going to be pushing this conspiracy stuff for the next 4 years. That's why I need y'all folks to understand why this show matters, why you got to support what we do, because let me be clear, we are going to counter their lies every single step of the way. We're going to be a thorn in their side. We're going to give them hell. When they lie, we're going to call it out. That's why every single time one of these Black Republicans comes on this show and they start lying, I shut them down. I love it when they say, "Why you always interrupt Republicans?" I didn't interrupt Rena because she wasn't lying. See, that's why they get mad.
I'm also not a Trumplican, you know that.
No. But what I'm saying is, what they don't like, they love to go on these other shows, go on Fox News, go on Newsmax, go on OANN, and go on the rest of it, and they love to lie. And they don't like when somebody has the facts and stops their lying. Well, when you bring your ass on this show, I'm shutting you down with your lies, because we are not going to feed this crap to our audience. We're not going to sit here and allow them to continue the games that they play. And that's exactly what's going on with the games that they play. Folks, pull up my next guest on this particular topic as well, because, again, we're talking about, matter of fact, as we're pulling them up, I saw this video. I've seen it a couple of times. Leslie Jones tweeted this out, and it really speaks just a whole lot to how I feel right now. Y'all, roll it.
I just have one thing to say. Hang on here. You about to lose that job. You about to lose that job. This thing. You about to lose that job. Oh my goodness. You about to lose your job. This thing. You about to lose your job. This thing. You about to lose your job. 'Cause you are entertaining me. Or nothing. You about to lose your job. This thing. You about to lose your job. This thing. You about to lose.
Video. Kristen Clark, Lawrence Committee for Civil Rights Under Law. She joins us right now. Kristen, y'all have been battling in the courts with these crazy Trump people. They have been losing case after case after case. I mean, he's now lost Pennsylvania at least half a dozen times, same with Michigan. And so now this last-ditch effort with the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, even they said, get the hell out of here.
Yeah, so 36 cases to date brought by President Trump or his allies, and they've failed in virtually every single one. One or two cases may have resulted in the discounting of a couple hundred ballots, but this game is just about over. Here's what's happened. The GSA is providing transition support to the administration. Here's what's happening. Michigan has, the State Board of Canvassers has now certified the election results. We prevailed in Pennsylvania over the weekend, and they're making a desperate attempt by asking the Third Circuit, the appellate court, to block certification of results in Pennsylvania, which I think is highly unlikely given how poorly this case was pled and handled. No evidence whatsoever to support the relief that President Trump was seeking here, which was the rejection of millions of ballots. And, it's interesting. I just got, Roland, a few minutes ago, a copy of the temporary restraining order. They're moving for emergency relief from the Third Circuit. Giuliani doesn't appear on the papers. President Trump literally put forth his lawyer, Rudolph Giuliani, in court last week, parading around and making arguments for the first time in a courtroom for decades, and his name doesn't show up on the pleading offered this evening. It's been a sham from the beginning, and I do think that the door is closing in, and we're moving closer and closer to the point of putting the nail on the coffin of this fiasco.
Well, and the things, Christian, that's a trip here is when you look at the nonsense that they're involved in, they won't go to court and lie. So they lie in news conferences because they know exactly what's going to happen in court when they lie before a judge.
Exactly. I mean, the judge in Pennsylvania is a Federalist Society member, right? I just want to underscore that. This case was so ridiculous. No evidence, no proof, no evidence, and asking a federal judge to reject and disenfranchise millions of voters across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. When the ink is dry, I think that the history books will show that President Trump is our nation's first president, most certainly in modern time, but maybe ever. But this is the first president to literally use the White House to launch a mass disenfranchisement scheme after an election. I can't think of another president in our nation's history who has taken such an extraordinary effort to disenfranchise not just Americans, but Black Americans and voters of color in particular.
So what's the next legal front? So, I mean, look, these idiots probably be so stupid, they'll try to go to the Supreme Court.
They will. I think that this is a move of desperation. I think any further legal maneuvering by President Trump and his lawyers, whoever those lawyers are at any given point of the day, will fail. I think any continued effort to ask a court to disenfranchise millions of Americans is a sign of desperation. And I do think that the dust is settling here and that very soon we'll be moving forward and doing just what you say. Giving them hell and really doing the hard work to restore and rebuild a country that has just been decimated over the past 4 years by an administration that has rolled back civil rights and suppressed voting rights at every turn. We've got a lot of hard work to do in the road ahead.
Well, y'all have been certainly on the front lines battling this in the courts. Let folks know how they can help the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law continue to do their work.
I appreciate that, Roland. Yeah, we've gotten involved in at least 10 of the 36 cases that have been filed, and we're doing this to stand up for Black voters. And you can support our cause by visiting our website, www.lawyerscommittee.org, And Roland, we are here to make sure that people have the support they need to vote in those Georgia runoff elections and other runoff elections happening in Louisiana and elsewhere. You can call 866-OUR-VOTE, 866-OUR-VOTE to get help that you need to make sure your voice is heard in these important runoff elections that are happening as well.
Absolutely. All right, Kristen Clark, Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law. We certainly appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for having me.
All right, folks. Just so y'all understand how crazy, deranged, and sick in the head these Trump supporters are, these white conservative evangelicals, all right? Let me play you. Jamal Bryant posted this video on his page this weekend. And if you want to see how stupid these folks are, watch this.
I saw this picture of the people in the ballots. And what my eye was drawn to was the tables. The tables. And what the Lord started to talk to me about was He went through and He overturned the tables. What are on those tables? Ballots. Ballots. And what I could see was He was walking up and down those aisles. and he started turning over the tables. The tables are being turned over. Those tables are being turned over. The tables are being turned over. And he came to a table and he turned it over. Glory to the Lord. Oh, glory to God. Enough! Enough! Enough!
Guess what, y'all?
Daniel!
Come on. Sorry. God did not overturn the results in Michigan, in Pennsylvania, in Georgia, in Arizona, in Nevada. Y'all lost. The crazy thing, Rena, is these white conservative evangelicals are playing to the sheer ignorance of their supporters. And these fools were literally sitting in church thinking, yeah, God is going to go in and just turn the tables and God is going to reverse the ballots. Oh, yeah, that's going to happen. Has it dawned on them that maybe God was in the voting booth on November 3rd? See, and these people are so nuts. They fall for this silliness.
I tell you when it will dawn on them. It's January 20th, 2021. That's the day they're going to realize that that prophecy was not fulfilled. And look, nothing surprises me anymore. I think 5 years of fighting up against this orange person in the White House. I mean, he's a ridiculous man. The supporters that defend him to this moment, I hear the most nonsensical, illogical arguments for why he deserved a second term. Nothing that makes sense. Nothing at all. Nothing rooted in sort of, okay, well, look, it was purely the economy, and that's what I'm voting about. It's truly a lot of the chosen one type of language. And that's the only way you can square it all up. How else did evangelicals get comfortable with voting for a man who's now on his third marriage, has kids by 3 different women, 2 of them immigrants? I mean, if this was somebody with melanin in their skin, they would be absolutely eviscerated. The fact that they have defended this guy, it's because they believe him to be the chosen one. And so therefore we should not really be that surprised that it's made it this far with pastors screaming these type of honestly obscenities. I mean, that is ridiculous to look at just a little bit of video footage there, but people have consumed themselves in this stuff. They've had to hang on to something for 4 years. And another something that I have heard very reasonable Republicans, and I've been on this show in the past talking about the factions of Republicans in the past, Mid-Atlantic, Southern, Western, they all used to be very distinct once upon a time, not in the era of Trump. I've heard white, very, very wealthy Republicans, longtime, very moderate types say to me, Biden crime family. They use those words. It is as if they're told, I mean, it's shocking. I have to grip myself for a second because it's as if they're told that all Democrats are criminals and they're all coming to loot the country by taking over the Oval Office. Well, hey, that's what your guy just did for the past 4 years. How did you miss it? I don't know.
Looks like, Avis, this video from Paula White didn't work.
And strike 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 until you have victory. For every enemy that is aligned against you, let there be that we would strike the ground, for you will give us victory, God. I hear a sound of abundance of rain. I hear a sound of victory. I hear a sound of shouting and singing. I hear a sound of victory. I hear a sound of an abundance of rain. I hear a sound of victory. I hear a sound of an abundance of rain. I hear a sound of victory. The Lord says it is done. The Lord says it is done. The Lord says it is done. For I hear victory, 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 victory in the corridors of heaven. In the corridors of heaven, victory, 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 victory. For angels are being released right now. Angels are being dispatched right now. Hamanda aka ata raka teda baka sanda ata ambo osa kata rite eke banda ata rike didi ashata. For angels have even been dispatched from Africa right now. Africa right now. Africa right now. From Africa right now. They're coming here. They're coming here. In the name of Jesus. From South America. They're coming here. They're coming here. They're coming here. They're coming here. From Africa. From South America. Angelic forces. Angelic reinforcement. Angelic reinforcement. Angelic reinforcement. Pika hata anda ata. Ora bata rata anda eke eke manda rasata. For I hear the sound of victory. 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 I hear the sound of victory.
Biden, Harris, Biden, Harris, Biden, Harris, Biden, Harris, Biden, Harris, Biden, Harris. That's the sound of victory. 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 Paula White, Biden, Harris, thanks for your prayers, because that's who it benefited. But just so y'all understand what y'all dealing with, why I keep telling y'all, don't let this woman back near any black church after this nonsense. This is the crap that she said Sunday before last.
Christ-likeness is not found in my gender. It is not found in my culture. It is not found in my ethnicity. It is not found in KKK. It is not found in Antifa. And it is not found in Black Lives Matter. All which are anti-Christ and even terrorist organizations. Christ-likeness is not...
now we are revealing ourselves here, because now she's saying Cliff Albright, founder of Black Voters Matter, co-founder, that, she's saying is that Black Lives Matter, terrorist organizations, anti-Christ. Oh, really? That's how we gonna play, Paula White? Gotcha.
Yeah, Roland, I want to join you in thanking her when she was calling on those angels from Africa and from South America. She really did us a favor, because that's exactly who it is that turned out to decide this election. You know, black folks in those key states, as well as those South American angels in places like Arizona and New Mexico. So we really want to thank Paula for calling on the right angels. I don't know what she thought they was going to do when they got here, but evidently it didn't go her way. But she was right. I hear the sound of victory.
Oh, yeah, I hear the sound of victory, and we also expect to hear the sound of victory in Georgia. Y'all are going to be going hard in Georgia. Let folks know what the plan is for this runoff election.
Yeah, man. I mean, the plan is to do more of the same what we did all throughout 2020, all throughout the weeks and months before the general election. You know, it's basically to register folks, to get as many people as possible, to do vote by mail, then to get as many people as possible, do early vote, and for whoever's left, to get them all out on election day to be able to vote safely without having long lines. And we've already gotten started. We're doing a text campaign that's going to send out 10 million text messages for each of those purposes, right? Voter registration, vote by mail, early vote. We're doing programs right now. In fact, right now we're in Valdosta. We just left a food distribution, a holiday food box giveaway that we did in Albany, Georgia. Gave away 425 food boxes. Same thing we're doing right now in Valdosta. We're at Kingdom Builders Church right here in Valdosta, doing the same thing, giving away holiday boxes. But it's not just, it's not charity. It's solidarity, not charity, right? This is a way of saying thank you to the black voters who came out in spite of a horrific year, came out, showed out, made history. So we wanted to be able to say thank you. We also want to be able to deal with these food insecurity issues. And in the process, we're registering folks. We're giving folks the links to be able to do their vote by mail, ballot requests, all of that going on at these events. So like we always say, and as you always know, it's a party with a purpose.
Folks, this is a photo Cliff posted here. Normally we're used to them having one bus. Y'all got a fleet now, man. What's going on? I mean, I'm seeing buses, vans. Man, y'all ready to roll.
That's right. It was the blackest fleet in America. It used to just be the blackest bus in America. Now it's the blackest fleet in America. We had, during the general election, we had 2 buses and 7 baby buses, 7 of those vans that were roaming around Georgia we're doubling down, Roland. We could have 14 of those vans driving all around Georgia, from the corners from Metro Atlanta to Savannah, down to Southwest Georgia, Columbus, over to Savannah, and everywhere in between, doing events just like what we're doing now, doing events that serve the community, that build power, that get folks registered, get folks excited, doing COVID-safe events, caravans going through the neighborhoods, bringing people to the polls, dropping off ballots early, all of that. It's all about, doing whatever we can, one, to get our base out. To be clear, this is a base election.
Right.
Ain't no persuasion going on between now and January 5th. This is a base election. Whoever can get their base back out, even if all you do is get everybody out who voted for the November 3rd election, if you do that, then you're 90% of the way there. But if you then go the next yard and you get new folks registered, the 26,000 young folks that are turning 18 between now and January 5th, the 30-something thousand returning citizens formerly incarcerated who have their rights to vote, but they just don't know about it because the state does such a bad job of telling them what their rights are, right? If we get new folks registered, and then if we reach to those folks who were already registered but didn't come out to vote, partially because we don't really believe that our vote matters sometimes because we've been convinced that this is a red state. Georgia's not a red state. The South is not full of red states. It's full of states that have been underinvested in, undervalued, and underestimated. And with the right resources being spent in the right way, because it's not just about having money. You got to spend that money. You got to put it in the hands of the people, like Kingdom Bills Church, like the fraternities and sororities, like the local chapters at NAACP or other community groups. When you get it in the hands of the people who are on the ground doing the work, then you can make stuff happen. It's not just about having money. You got to get the money to the folks that can make things happen.
One of the things that, again, that you guys are working on, and look, we're going to be on the ground with y'all in December, live streaming different events on our Roland Martin Unfiltered platform, and so we're working through the schedule right now. So we certainly plan to be there. I want to get your thoughts, and we had Greg Pallas off the top of the show, what Georgia's now trying to do with this car registration crap.
Yeah.
I mean, you talk about new poll taxes in the 21st century.
Yeah. I mean, Georgia's pulling. Look, we know that Georgia's been the epicenter of voter suppression for at least a few years, definitely in 2018, and even this year. Because the fact of the matter is, this election should not have even been as close. We have a victory here, and it's glad that they did the whole little, the audit, and nothing changed, and you got this vote tally, whatever, this vote margin for Biden. But the fact of the matter is, this should not have even been a close election. There were 300,000 voters purged last year, 200,000 of which never should have been purged because they, in fact, had not changed their address, right? And so this shouldn't even have been a close election. So if all that we know they've done in the past, imagine what they're about to do over the next 6 weeks when they're desperate, Roland, to hold on to these 2 seats. Georgia shocked the country this past November. We're about to shock the country again in January.
All right, Cliff Albright, co-founder of Black Voters Matter. Man, we'll be with y'all every step of the way. We certainly appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Roland.
Again, we're seeing just sort of the madness here. I want to go back to my panel here, and I want to talk to them about, Avis, I want to start with you, that Paula White clip. For her to sit here and actually say Black Voters Matter is a terrorist organization, anti-Christ, that shows you how sick and demented these people are, trying to put Black Voters Matter in the same breath as Antifa and the KKK.
Well, yeah, let me just say as the KKK, because the Antifa also should not have been categorized in conjunction with the KKK. The KKK is a terrorist organization that have murdered people in this country for decades and continues to try to do so. And so to connect that with an anti-fascist organization that's trying to defend people who are being attacked by people like the KKK, and Black Lives Matter, which is clearly a peaceful organization, just shows you one of the horrible sort of trends of white supremacy is they try to hide their evilness by projecting their evilness against organizations that are seeking to defend or provide rights for those who are being oppressed. That's an old game. They've done it for years. But the thing that you alluded to, something that really annoys me more than anything about Paula White. How many millions of dollars has she been able to extract from the Black community with her shenanigans? How much? And I want Black people to really start judging these people who they are giving their money to because they want to wrap themselves in a cloth of religion, when clearly all she's looking to do is oppress you. I mean, really. When she was talking about striking, she's lucky she wasn't struck straight to hell for all that she has done and all that she continues to do under this cloak of religion. So I'm hoping that whoever has supported her in the past in our community, I'm hoping that you have awoken from your trance. And I hope that you see her now for who she is and not give her one more thin dime of your money, period. She's a charlatan.
Mustafa.
Well, part of my family is Baptist and Pentecostal ministers, deacons and deaconesses. So you got to be really careful. If you are a Christian, when you start actually giving people idol sort of status, if you will, the scripture is very clear about that. And there are a number of folks who have put President Trump, they've lifted him up as an idol, but yet they call themselves followers of Jesus or followers of Christ. So, you may want to actually go back and read the scripture again so you actually understand what you're doing. And then, sometimes we also put ministers and bishops and other people in that same light. And you just have to be very careful if you're serious about your spirituality. I'm not talking about your religiosity. I'm talking about your spirituality. And I'll just leave on this last point. If you say that you're a follower of Christ, then there should be a reflection of your actions and how you conduct yourself.
Well, it is sad to see what's going on with these folks, but that's actually what we are dealing with. Folks, speaking of what we're dealing with as well, massive increase nationally with coronavirus. 12.4 million cases of COVID-19 in the United States. 257,000 people have died as a result. The infection rates continue to soar across the country. People are sitting here now trying to decide whether they're going to actually have Thanksgiving meals with their families as well. Medical professionals are saying, look, do not do it at all. Don't gather, things along those lines. I'm going to go to a break. We come back. We're going to talk to Dr. Ebony Hilton, as well as talk to Professor Valerie Montgomery Rice, President and Dean of the Morehouse School of Medicine, about this as well. And again, folks, COVID is no joke. It is exploding across the country, and we're going to give you the information that you need to make the critical decisions when it comes to being with your family.
So because of friendships like yours, that's what made me figure out that, my vote did matter and that it was important for me to vote and get out there, even if I wasn't doing everything, perfectly, just trying and then learning from the mistakes, whatever mistakes that I made, and trying again and getting better the next time that I went out to vote or to speak about something, political. That's the start. That's the way that we do it, because we can't go back and undo. Like, I can't go back in time and make myself be at the polls when I wasn't. So that's where the civic piece comes in. But I can start now. And that's what, I started when I started. And now I'm a part of more, political drives to get other people to vote. I'm not the world's smartest when it comes to politics. I'm the first to admit that. I'm not even the second or third. But I'm trying, and I think that's really the message here, Get out and vote, because it does matter. Your vote absolutely matters.
Hey everybody, it's your man Fred Hammond.
Hi, my name is Brescia Webb, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered. Well, I like a nice filter usually, but we can be unfiltered.
Folks, we'll continue to see the impact in this country when it comes to coronavirus. It is deadly, it is serious, and folks who are playing games with this need to understand that you and your family can lose their lives. Joining us right now, Dr. Valerie Montgomery Rice, President and Dean of the Morehouse School of Medicine. Also, Dr. Ebony Hilton, Associate Professor of Anesthesiology and Critical Care Medicine at the University of Virginia. I'll start with you, Dr. Rice. First and foremost, Dr. Fauci and others said this was going to happen. Once we got to the winter, if people did not buckle down, if folks did not pay attention, we were going to see this explosion. We're actually seeing it. What is it going to take for people, especially in these red states, to realize this is real? They're now projecting by the spring, we're going to hit 400 to 500,000 deaths.
So I think what it's going to take, first of all, is for people just to remember the 3 W's, right? Wear your mask, wash your hands, and watch your distance. That's the first thing we can do. And then I think we have to continue pushing the education of what happens to people when they contract this virus so they can see how serious it is. You know, when you look at the data, I don't know anybody who doesn't know someone who's first contacted the virus. And then we know that they have worse outcomes if they're Black or brown. The second thing that needs to happen is that we got to get more testing. We got to make testing more readily available. And then when people are positive, we got to give them the opportunity to isolate, do contact tracing, and then quarantine those persons. That's what we got to do. We got to get that message out there, and we got to get the resources out to people.
One of the things is just dealing with the sheer stupidity of Dr. Ebony Hilton. For instance, here's in Virginia, this crazy right-wing Black pastor, E.W. Jackson. This is what he said in March.
See, folks, I'll tell you something. I'm going to boldly say this. I will not get the coronavirus. I will not get it. Who do you think you are? How can you say that? Because I've asked God to protect me from it. And I've confessed Psalm 91 over my life and over the life of my congregation and over the life of our families. And we're not getting it. In the name of Jesus.
Ebony, that was on March 27th when the folks at Right Wing Watch posted that particular video. This was November 16th.
Well, it's good to see all of you here today. And it's
Amen.
good to be with you today. It's good to see all of you on Facebook Live. I want to say that I've been out for the last several weeks. A couple of weeks I was out because I was speaking somewhere else. And the last week I was out because I was tested positive for COVID-19. So, but I'm back. I'm healthy. I'm sound. I'm whole. Praise God. I'm feeling good. And I'm just grateful to God. And my wife is, of course, she got it from me. One of my little gifts to her. But she's doing fine too, and she's going to be back to work tomorrow.
That's the kind of stupidity, Ebony. You go on the video, I will not catch it because God protects me, and you got it.
Yes, and unfortunately, it's one of those things that so many people are continuing to deny that this thing is real. But what we know is that over 100,000 people are being tested positive today, and by Inauguration Day, we're expecting it to be 400,000 people diagnosed with COVID-19 every single day. This thing has to be taken seriously because it's costing literally hundreds of thousands of lives at this point.
This is, and where we are, Dr. Rice, we're sitting here, we're hearing the companies down talk about vaccine, where that comes. But before you even get to that, we still have to deal with the folks who don't want to listen. But here's the other thing. I saw, and maybe you could help us out here. Folks have been posting these stories saying studies are being done saying masks don't work. Then I saw one study that said that mask works for the person who has it, but not for the other people who also wearing it. And I'm sitting there going, okay, where's not all this coming from? It's muddying the waters for our people who are listening. Are you and Dr. Hilton recommending wear a mask? And if so, what type? And what else should we be doing?
Okay, so it's very simple. 3 W's. Wear your mask, wash your hands, and watch your distance. There have been conflicting information that comes out. I agree with that. But there's no confusion about the benefits of a mask. The mask protects you, particularly if you wear it correctly, over your nose and your mouth. Most of your secretions will come out of your mouth. So therefore, when you wear your mask, you are protecting someone else. Most people acquire the virus through their nasal area. And so when you wear the mask, that decreases the opportunity for their secretions to get through your nasal passage. So there is a dual benefit You protecting others and you protecting yourself from wearing the mask. There was a study that just came out that looked at, and this was out of Denmark. It was in Denmark where they had half of a group of people wear the mask and a group of people not wear the mask. And what they showed, even though it didn't reach statistical difference, there was clearly a trend of the people who wore their mask having a decreased chance of being infected, because again, they were covering their nostril area, which is where the virus gets in. Wear your mask, no discussion.
Ebony, when I traveled for the first time in October, you got a whole bunch of text messages from me because you've also been trying to get people to understand that it's not just covering your nose and your mouth as well, protecting your eyes and your ears.
Right, because it's all connected. And the way that I kind of help people to understand that is when you're crying, you'll notice that your nose gets running, right? Because literally your tear ducts empties into the same cavity as your nose and into the back of your mouth. And so with this idea of a mask, I also want people to understand that when you're seeing people talk, when those little droplets that come out, there's many, many viruses that can stay in that bubble, for lack of a better word, of spit that comes out. And so when you're wearing a mask, instead of someone being able to, and this is going to get really nasty, but I'm just going to say it so people can understand the analogy. If someone were to hawk a spit towards your face, imagine how much virus is contained within that mucus, right? If you have a mask on that can block the large portion of that from going directly into your mouth, you're decreasing the viral load that you're taking in. And hopefully you won't be able to overwhelm your system. So I know oftentimes people say, well, the masks, they don't filter out viruses, right? No, if it's aerosolized, if it's that fine mist, no, it cannot filter out that. But what we're trying to prevent is that large dose of virus being able to enter into your mouth, enter into your nose, enter into your eyes that can overwhelm your system. And I hope that makes some sort of sense.
Dr. Rice, when we also look at again, these rates. And there are people right now, look, they miss their families. Look, when I went home in October, that was the first time I had seen my parents since the previous year, since Thanksgiving. But people are saying right now, look, if you want to see your people next Thanksgiving, avoid them this Thanksgiving.
That's right. That's right. That's right. We really are asking people to be careful and to avoid large gatherings. We love our Thanksgiving. I mean, it's my favorite holiday. My sisters and I, we usually all get together and we're cooking the night before. We're playing bid whist and spades, and our kids are here. But this year we have to do something differently. We need to gather with our insular family, our small group. And for some people who are going to travel, I've said tips like this. If you are going to travel, make sure, of course, you have to wear a mask. Eat before you get on the plane so you decrease the chances of taking off your mask. And consider testing. If you cannot get a test and you're coming home like our kids are coming home from school, then I would say to those young people, you need to quarantine for a period of no less than 5 days upstairs in your room, limiting your contact, wearing your mask while you're in the house until we are sure that you are not symptomatic. But if all possible, get a test. There are multiple places where you can get a test. You can get tests with all of the CVS, and there's lots of drive-through groups that are offering testing. And so if possible, get a test. But you definitely need to try your best to avoid large gatherings, because there will be someone in that gathering that is asymptomatic and that most likely will have that virus.
Ebony, I got somebody sitting here on my YouTube channel, Angel. She says, I'm debating whether to go to Indiana from Georgia to be with family. I mean, again, unless you have significant protections, unless you have testing for every single body. And here's the other deal, even with testing. There are people who can test negative today. We saw that with a bunch of these White House folks, that it takes time for COVID-19 to develop and show up in the body. So you can test negative on Wednesday. It don't mean you don't have it.
Well, I mean, again, I always like to give examples because I feel like people can get it. At this point, the White House is the most protected house in America. And they tested everyone. And what did they have? A super spreader event where Trump was infected. We've had, who else was literally the Speaker of the House? We've had so many people, Chris Christie, Herman Cain, that these people are getting tested so they can be close to the president. And yet the president himself came up positive. What people have to realize is that just like a pregnancy test, women, we know that very early on in your pregnancy, you could have taken a pregnancy test and it would have came back negative. It didn't mean that you didn't have a baby growing inside. It just meant that whatever substance we were trying to measure on that test, the amount that you were actually producing in your body was too low to be detected, right? The same thing with this COVID-19 test. You may not be shedding a high enough viral load for it to be detected, but it doesn't mean that you're not infected. And what we know is that if you err wrong right now, every 44 seconds, one person dies in America from COVID-19. So you think about how long this show has been running and count every 44 seconds and say goodbye to someone. And so when you're making that assessment of, is it worth this trip? Think about your family members and recognize the fact that unfortunately, we're having people taking this into their homes and they're having to say goodbye to their mother, to their father, to their sister, to their brothers. And it's just simply not worth the risk when we can wait and hopefully get to a point of vaccination and herd immunity and other treatment modalities to keep people alive. But right now, people are dying.
Final, Dr. Rice, real quick, y'all are working on a PSA campaign, correct?
Yes. Yes, mask up, and it should hit out sometime this weekend or I think on Wednesday. But the whole point of it is just to encourage people with the 3 W's: wear your mask, watch your distance, wash your hands, and then just encouraging people to stay the distance. We're running a marathon right now. We really are. And we are going to see the finish line. We have 3 vaccines that have been completed with their phase 3 portion of the study, and 2 of them are over 90% effective. 1 of them is over 70% effective. And so there is a finish line that I can see. Now, it's going to take a lot of logistics and a lot of commitment for us to get people to take this vaccine and to get enough people taking it where we see the efficacy of it, see how effective it is, okay? It's one thing for you to build up immunity. It's another thing for the vaccine to be effective. Enough people have to actually get vaccinated. So we still have a long way to go to get to that finish line, but I can see it. And we just need people to hang in there, continue doing the work that they've been doing, washing their hands, wearing their mask, and watching their distance. And then we're asking the government to ensure that we have enough testing available such that when people are positive, they can isolate, and then we can do contact tracing, and we can quarantine people, and also that people don't lose their livelihood while they are quarantining or isolating to get through this period of being active with the virus.
So let me reiterate for everybody who's watching me, those of you who've been asking questions, Ebony, the only way for you to be sure is if you're going somewhere, you quarantine for a specified number of days, get tested. If after that quarantine period you are not positive, but that has to happen with every single family member. It can't be one person out of 12 who does that. And when I was talking to somebody and they were like, well, hey, but you can still go home. I said, guys, the moment I leave my house, so let's say I quarantine at my house here in the DMV. The moment I leave my house and go to the airport and get on the plane and then fly home to Dallas or Houston and then go through that airport, go through the rental car, I'm not going to quarantine on that end.
I mean, it's one of those things of, to give examples, right? When we're talking about your risk of infection, when you're on a plane, you have to remember that people are coming from all different areas of the country to coalesce in Chicago or Atlanta, where we have these major hubs of these airports. they're bringing whatever risk of virus with them onto this plane. Now, when you're talking about risk, what does that mean? So there's actually, you can type in COVID tracker risk or your estimated risk of exposure, and they can have different calculations for different counties. And to give you an example, like for instance, in Cass County, Illinois, if you have a group gathering of more than 50 people, you're 99% likely to meet at least one person who has COVID-19. If you gather 15 people in this little space, you're 75% likely to find one person who is going to be COVID-19 positive. So that 15 people, that's basically a family unit. So again, if you're bringing people from all over this country, we just have to realize that risk is relative to wherever they're coming from. And if they're in these hotspot areas, like in North Dakota, where we literally have, I think it's 19 counties, that if you had 15 people gathered, you're at least 75% likely to find one person with COVID-19. If they're coming from those areas, they're bringing that risk with them. So you have to take precautions.
And the last point here, Dr. Rice, I remember the news conference where Trump and all these people were up there and they were talking about we're going to see this mass testing taking place in parking lots of Walgreens and CVS's and Walmarts, all the sort of stuff along those lines. And the reality is we still haven't seen it because we have not created a mass testing deal. I'm trying to pull a video up right now. I mean, we're seeing these massive cars. These massive cars lining up in D.C. and New York. And in fact, I saw this video here. This was literally video at the Shanghai airport where they announced they're going to be doing this COVID testing, and they're just trying to push some of these people back. This is what happens when you do not have again, an orderly process, and that's what we're seeing all across the country. Massive lines at the Dodger Stadium and these other stadiums. It's crazy.
You know, one of the things that we have definitely been pushing, we have a COVID-19 collaborative that's been put together by the BlackDoctors.org, the National Medical Association, the 4 Historically Black Medical Schools, and the National Urban League. And you may have seen our love letter to Black America that we released today. And that was really saying to Black America that we see you, we hear you, we love you, we're here, we are concerned about the risk associated with the vaccine, and we are in the room helping to make the decisions about the priority of the vaccine distribution and the trials. But we also are talking about resource-aligned testing strategies. And that's one of the things that we have not seen. And so what I'm hoping is with this new administration, with the Biden-Harris administration, that they are going to, first of all, the Defense Production Act, we are going to produce all of the PPE that our healthcare professionals and frontline workers and essential workers, what they need. Hopefully they're going to do that. And then the second thing is, and these need to be done concurrently, all of the resources needed for resource-aligned testing strategies, such that a region will have a major site where all of the diagnostic tests can be run, but the specimen can be collected at multiple different places and in the comfort of your own home. At Morehouse School of Medicine, we have been doing self-administered testing now with all of our employees on an average of 7 to 10 days. Everybody does their own test. They do it in their car when they do their symptom checker, and they drop it off in a container as they're getting ready to come into the office with their face mask. Having done their symptom tracker, and then, keeping their social distance. And we get the results back within 30 hours, okay? And so it is possible to do, but it does require a strategy. And that's what we haven't seen, and that's what we're looking forward to seeing with this new administration.
Then, well, we certainly appreciate it. Dr. Rice, Dr. Hilton, thank you so very much for your information. And again, we just want our people to be safe. More of us have died per capita, 1 in 1,000 than anybody else. Folks, don't take the chances. I get it. You want to see family. You want to hug them. You want to kiss them. But the reality is, be safe for Thanksgiving and Christmas. Let us get beyond this pandemic. I come from a huge family. My mom turned 73 on November 30th. And again, would love to see them, but they're staying put. They're not even going to Houston to see my brother and sisters. They've done it several times in the last several months, but everybody is staying put so we can all be safe and be protected. We sure appreciate both of you. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. All right.
Got to go to a commercial break, folks. We come back. Joe Biden is making announcements regarding his cabinet and his top officials. But does he have enough sisters already named? We're going to tell you about that and discuss that next right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Trump can show up and say anything, and they can just go, oh, yeah.
And the African-American community was great to us. They didn't vote.
You know, he just called you stupid. Did you hear that? But he's for us. Really? And they were just regurgitating the things that they had heard on a radio or in the barbershop or something that somebody had told them. They hadn't thought about it. Democracy is in danger because people don't know how to think. I'm done with trying to convince people to try to vote for their, for their life. You have to run for your life. I'm gonna go try to get people who are open to it and lead them. I'm done with hope. Fuck hope. Bye.
Raphael Warnock grew up in a house full of brothers and sisters. His parents taught him the value of hard work, like me.
Like me, he was first in his family to graduate from college and went on to earn a PhD.
He thinks insurance companies should not be allowed to discriminate against people with pre-existing conditions, like me.
Like me, Reverend Warnock knows that both parties in Washington could use some moral leadership.
I'm Raphael Warnock, and I approve this message because it's time we had a senator who put Georgians first, like me.
I'm John Ossoff, and the path to recovery is clear. First, we listen to medical experts to control this virus. Then we shore up our economy with stronger support for small businesses and tax relief for working families. And it's time for a historic infrastructure plan to get people back to work and invest in our future. We need leaders who bring us together to get this done. And that's why I approve this message.
Corrupt Senator Kelly Loeffler, by far the richest person in Congress, doesn't want you to know about the luxury private jet she bought with your tax money. Last year, Loeffler bought a Bombardier Challenger 300 jet, which she and her husband owned through a shell company named after Loeffler's $10 million Atlanta mansion. Her financial disclosures show the jet is worth up to $25 million. Corrupt Kelly Loeffler was able to put the cost of her private jet onto the taxpayers through a loophole in Trump's tax bill. Loeffler's shell company deducted 100% of the cost of the purchase, meaning Georgia's working-class taxpayers paid for a senator worth $500 million to fly around in luxury. All of this despite her constituents barely hanging on during the pandemic. Kelly Loeffler is all about Kelly Loeffler, not Georgia. Vote her out on January 5th.
When the going got tough in business, David Perdue outsourced American jobs overseas.
In a deposition, Perdue testified he spent most of his career outsourcing.
You made a career out of outsourcing. How do you defend that?
Well, defend it, I'm proud of it. When the going got tough in the Senate, Perdue hid in the airport bathroom and even stole someone's cell phone who asked him a tough question.
I stole my property.
When the going got tough with COVID, Perdue hid critical information while selling his own stocks.
Records show that Senator David Perdue bought and sold stock shortly after a private Senate briefing on the virus.
It's not just that you're a crook, Senator. You're attacking the health of the people that you represent.
Now Perdue won't even face his constituents, backing out of debate after debate.
Enough incompetence, deceit, corruption, division. Change has come to Georgia. Change is coming to America.
Georgia needs a real senator, not a chicken Perdue. Midas Touch is responsible for the content of this advertisement.
Kelly Loeffler did not grow up in Georgia. She did not attend high school or college in Georgia. Nope. Kelly Loeffler moved to Georgia to marry her wealthy husband, who bought the New York Stock Exchange. And Kelly Loeffler used that wealth to buy her Senate seat, a seat she was never elected to. Kelly Loeffler was sent to Washington to help millionaires and billionaires get richer. like she did. And she has watched without care or concern as Georgia has gotten sicker and poorer. It's time to tell Kelly Loeffler, Georgia is not for sale. Midas Touch is responsible for the content of this advertising.
One senator in particular irks me. A Senator Kelly Loeffler, not elected, but appointed just a couple months ago.
Records show Loeffler and her husband, whose company owns the U.S. Stock Exchange, sold stock valued between $1.3 and $3.1 million.
Kelly Loeffler bought and sold stock shortly after a classified briefing on the virus.
They knew the market was going to tank, and they sold based on that inside information.
Some of the holdings she shed were in energy, automotive, retail, and airlines.
Look, Marie, it's not just what she sold, but it's actually what she bought. She bought things like Amazon, Citrix Systems, company that obviously was going to do well during a shutdown.
While still reassuring citizens that the U.S. was prepared.
We have Americans across the country who have seen their 401ks plummet. Were you trading on inside information about what was coming?
Folks, this woman is knee-deep in the swamp, and she just got there.
Well, Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue, first of all, Kelly Loeffler is really trying to attack Pastor Raphael Warnock when it comes to his sermons, but that's not going to work. You got to deal with all your money problems, and so that's why we sort of ran all of those ads by Midas Touch and others to show you exactly how crazy it's getting there in Georgia. Folks, one of the things that we do want to talk about now deals with Biden and what their plans are, and that has to do with various nominations. He's nominated longtime diplomat Linda Thomas Greenfield as U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations. During the Obama administration, Thomas Greenfield served as the Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs, and from 2008 to 2012, she served as the U.S. Ambassador to Liberia. Thomas Greenfield was born in Baker, Louisiana in the early 1950s, where she attended segregated schools. She said growing up, the KKK would visit her town and burn a cross in someone's yard every weekend. She's also encountered racism during her years attending Louisiana State University, where David Duke, the former Grand Wizard of the KKK, was also a student there at the time. Now, shortly after the announcement was made, Thomas Greenfield tweeted, "My mother taught me to lead with the power of kindness and compassion to make the world a better place. I've carried that lesson with me throughout my career in foreign service, and if confirmed, will do the same as ambassador to the United Nations." Thomas Greenfield is just one of several black women who have either been nominated or appointed to positions within the Biden administration. Now, one of those also will be working in legislative affairs. We're going to show her, get her name and photo in just a second. But the question is, are black women expecting more? Melanie Campbell, she's Executive Director and Chief Executive Officer of the National Coalition on Black Civic Participation, also with the Black Women's Roundtable. Melanie, I've been hearing grumblings from sisters who are not happy so far with this initial rollout from the Biden campaign. Now, cabinet positions are totally separate from staff positions. And when you look at, he made the announcement, Cedric Richmond, Congressman Cedric Richmond, Office of Public Engagement. He's named some of his deputy chiefs of staff, his chief of staff, also the folks who are going to be over the legislative affairs, the political office. One sister who's a deputy, but folks are saying, we better see a lot more sisters in this White House. Just your thoughts.
We do have that expectation. I would say that I think Cedric Richmond, Congressman Richmond, is definitely someone who has a lived experience. That he brings not just his legislative experience, but he brings lived experience as an African American. I think that's a great choice, as well as Linda Thomas Greenfield, both Louisiana, by the way. So some Southerners. So I think that's a really good thing. But every woman that Black woman I've spoken with, including myself, we do have expectations. We are working to the Black Women's Roundtable to submit recommendations. I know that you have Power Rising and Joint Center for Political Economic Studies, Win with Black Women, and other organizations that are making recommendations to the administration. And so we will continue to do that. And as we know, they made those announcements for these national security positions. There are 15 statutory positions. We do know for sure that we have one vice president in Senator Kamala Harris, who is a part of as well as the cabinet. But yes, we have expectations to see more.
One of the folks we're also talking about, go to my iPad, please, Shawanza Goff. She was named Deputy Director of the White House Office of Legislative Affairs. She, of course, served as the floor director for the House under Majority Leader Steny Hoyer. She was the first black woman to hold that position. She determined which bills came to the House floor, also set the legislative schedule, and helped craft the overall House Democratic agenda. She is from Virginia, is a graduate of the University of Tennessee and American University. And again, that's one of those positions as well that folks are looking at. But again, look, when you start talking about deputies, folks are like, okay, we get that. But again, what I'm hearing from sisters is that, hey, we want to see people who are running departments. And so we're going to be waiting to hear.
Right. I think, really looking for cabinet positions. We know, at least understanding, following it, I'm not in the room. I'm not in the transition team room, Biden-Harris transition team, but just our understanding of the Congresswoman Marsha Fudge is a name that's been floating around to be the Secretary of Agriculture. I participated in a letter that we did submit to the Biden-Harris with a recommendation from 24 primarily Black women-led organizations collectively, but also individually organizations are submitting those names. So the key is to we know what Black women did. We know the role we played. And so we are stepping boldly into, asking for what we want. Can't make Vice President-elect do anything, but I think he recognizes that the Black community, Black women and Black men, helped get him in there. But he knows that Black women gave 90% of our vote. And we were clear about we want to see ourselves in this administration. We have the VP elect for sure. And also there are several other positions that I believe that we should see more. And many Black women that I know that I work with through the Black Women's Roundtable and other organizations have those expectations. So the process has started. It's not over. And we're going to continue to engage. As I stated before, many of our organizations are putting in recommendations. And so we have high expectations to see more.
And the thing here is because this is what we are going to be looking for here, Melanie. We're looking to see African Americans all throughout the administration. And so what people have to understand is that you have what I call really three levels. You have cabinet positions. And yes, what you saw, national security apparatus, we get that, Secretary of State, United Nations, those positions. Then you get your cabinet position, but then you get to your staff positions that are actually within the White House. So John Kerry was named, the czar when it comes to climate. When you talk about who heads the personnel office, who heads the Office of Management and Budget, there's an African-American male who's rumored to get that, who head White House Council of Economic Advisors. But below that, though, is what we also begin to look at is, when you talk about the cabinets, who's the number two? Who's the chief of staff? Those positions as well, because that's where the reality is what people don't understand about how federal government works. The actual power in cabinet positions is really the number two. Because the number two actually really runs the agency. And so we're looking at, what we're looking for is not just a couple of high-profile big positions, but the big positions, the next level, and then that level below and level below.
Right. And Roland, there's 4,000 plus positions that need to be filled. This current administration did not bode well for a functioning federal government. There are so many positions they didn't fill or they put in people temporarily. There is a rebuilding. So when President-elect Biden and Vice President-elect Harris say, build back better, right? There's a whole lot of building back that has to be done. And for someone who, I didn't work in federal government, but I was appointee for, a local mayor, Maynard Jackson, and understand there are so many positions that have to be filled. And if we're talking about for the long term, then those are succession planning opportunities so that folks are in position because they would get the experience. So what I recommend for folks to do, go on that Biden-Harris transition team website, find out what's going on with it. connect with folks and get your see if there's a position that you may be qualified for. There are so many regional offices that are based all across the country. Not all the jobs are in Washington, D.C. They're right there in your local community. The federal government is in your local community. Your Social Security office is in your local community. And so there are a lot of positions. Of course, a lot of those are not necessarily appointee positions, but there are so many jobs. And even those what you call permanent jobs that are in the government were not filled. So there's a lot of opportunity, I believe, in the federal government, and folks should look at that as a public service opportunity and employment opportunity.
All right, then, Melody Campbell, we certainly appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Avis Jones-DeWeaver, I want to start with you. Also, people don't realize when we talk about these positions, we're also thinking about what happens when they leave the White House. Because what happens is these are the people who get hired in corporate America. These are people who get hired on K Street, who then are able to hire other people. And so when you're a senior level person in the White House, there are senior level positions that are available to you once you leave. If black folks are only in the lower level or the junior positions, then you don't get the senior level positions. And now we're talking about larger jobs, stock options. I mean, all these other different things that go along with being a major executive in the administration.
Absolutely. So, you know, what happens with where you are in the White House, you're exactly right, not only impacts what you can do to make sure that the focus is encompassing the concerns of our community, which is very important. But as you mentioned, there are sort of reverberating effects that happens in terms of the power that you have access to once that particular administration is over. And so when we don't find Black people in leadership in administrations, then it has these reverberating effects such that after that administration is over, the spoils and others don't include us, and therefore can't trickle down to more of us. It is a sad thing. You know, I feel like Issa Rae. I'm rooting for everybody Black, okay? We need to have more Black people that are appointed specifically at cabinet level positions, number one, and also throughout this administration in senior level positions so that we can make sure that we are seen on issues that impact our community, which quite frankly is every issue, and our specific slant is considered, but also such that those people have futures coming out of that administration, because even the best case scenario, they'll just be there 8 years, right? That could have major impacts on the rest of the community.
Mustafa, I love these idiots who love commenting, such as Stefan Boykin on YouTube. So let me get this straight. Does being a Black woman or Black in general the only qualifier for the best nominee for these positions? Just food for thought. But you don't say that about the white folks who have been appointed. See, Mustafa, here's the deal. The reason we talk about this here, because the reason we don't use a dumbass qualifier, qualified, is because we already assume the people who are being considered are qualified. So it's stupid, Stefan, to say, well, how do you know they're actually being qualified? Because if you ain't qualified, you're not on the list. This ain't the Trump folk who were picked for positions. This is a different administration picking people. So we automatically assume those who are being considered are qualified. But whenever white folks are being named, no one brings up qualified as part of the conversation.
Oh, without a doubt. You know, they always try and throw these additional hurdles on people. I've seen it for decades now. And, you know, there's a strong vetting process. So as was shared, 4,000 political appointees, 1,200 of them actually have to go through Senate confirmation, you know, depending on what the job is. And folks are all qualified. You know, the problem has always been that even though Black folks were qualified, they weren't getting the opportunities. And if they did get those opportunities, our policy would look markedly different than it has over the years, because you have someone who has both that book knowledge, but they also understand the impacts that are happening on the ground. And our government is supposed to be representative of the people. And what that means is that it actually has to really support, it really has to understand, it has to be able to move those resources to the places in a way that actually matter. And I'll just leave on this last point. You know, when you have one of these positions, in some instances, you are in charge of millions of dollars, sometimes billions of dollars. So we can make sure that those resources, those tax dollars, are actually finally making it to the communities that need them the most, and also that they're actually being formulated in a way that actually is transformative if we truly embrace all these various folks that have so many amazing skills.
And Rena, look, as Mustafa said, this is power. This is in control of billions of dollars in federal resources. And so who sits in those positions also helps determine regulations. It helps determine lots of different things. And so it matters who sits in these positions.
Yeah, and our country is what it is today because of the people that have sat in the positions before now. Anything we are experiencing now from the federal government, whatever we feel isn't addressed properly, look at the people making the decisions. And this is why back in 2017, I set out and I created an organization to help support more women run for political office as well as be considered for political appointments. And that was really in line with what I've been seeing to be a problem ever since I left Capitol Hill back in 2011, is that there are just not enough people in the ranks of U.S. government, whether you're looking even in the state houses, state to state. You see such a dearth of truly a reflective democracy. We don't have that, and we need it in the positions of power. And so people often think it's the member of Congress that makes the decisions, but like you said earlier, it's the number twos often in the offices. And so when I learned recently of an organization called Inclusive America, it's a nonprofit organization. I had a call with their founder. He told me, he said, I was there in the executive branch, and he was there during Obama's time. He said, I looked around and I looked at the people making the decisions, and these are older white men largely. And this is a white man telling me this. And so he helped start this organization really on that pledge for diversity bent. And that is a really important thing. When people who are not people of color, not part of the BIPOC community, really can see that and start to be allies, that's what we need. Because right now, one really alarming stat I learned from them is that only 17.4% of senior ranked executive positions in our government are staffed by minorities.
There you go.
Now, that tells you everything you need to know. And it's perfect. It's a layup for your argument earlier. The government should reflect the American people at senior levels, not just junior or mid-level ones. We need them in senior roles. And so part of the work, I think, of these great nonprofit organizations across the country that are sort of waking and taking the call on really what needs to change for our government to really look more like the country and perhaps avoid what we saw these past few years. I was really encouraged when I saw Biden's list of first unveiling of people he was nominating to be part of his administration. And I didn't see a single last name Biden.
Got it.
I mean, that's such a change already, but that should not be the bar. That is too low of a bar. We need to swing the pendulum back. And I fully believe this administration will really answer that call, because look at what they did with their COVID task force already. The co-chair there is a brilliant doctor, Nunez Matthews, I believe is her name, and just incredible appointments already. So we should feel encouraged. And yes, we always want the most qualified person, but look, if they're on the short list, let's advocate for them.
Folks, in one of his final acts as president, Donald Trump is threatening to veto legislation to fund the military unless a widely supported bipartisan provision to rename military bases honoring Confederate military leaders is removed. Trump has said he will not back down and will veto the annual National Defense Authorization Act if the amendment to rename the base isn't removed. This legislation has been agreed on by both Democrats and Republicans in both the House and the Senate. Although some Republicans are now shifting their positions to align with Trump, Democrats are refusing to budge on the agreed-to provision. If the legislation isn't passed by January 3rd, Congress will have to start from scratch. To me, Ava, this is a no-brainer. You tell Trump, kiss my ass, go to hell. If you want to veto it, fine. Override his veto. And if any of your punk-ass Republicans act like they want to go along with him, expose them too.
Absolutely. I think it looks like he's doing everything possible to piss off the military. I mean, okay, this is somebody who has
piss off black people.
And piss off black people. But look, he's looking to whole funding from the military. This is the same group with whom he allowed to have bounties placed on their heads by the Russians, and he's done nothing about it. He doesn't even want to talk about it. And now he's talking about withdrawing fundings if they don't continue to deitize actual traitors against this nation in terms of Confederate monuments and naming Confederate bases, naming bases after Confederate leaders. It is disgusting what he's doing. Obviously, he's once again appealing to his racist tilt and his racist sort of minions, but also that's just who he is. And I just wonder, with all of these Black people, once again, who have supported him, all of these rappers who are supporting him, it's interesting to me that he keeps doing all this stuff now, showing his true colors, trying to disenfranchise Black voters, now trying to maintain sort of deity status for all of these Confederate soldiers throughout our system in terms of military bases, and not one of these people have said a peep about it.
Right.
Where are they?
Bottom line, here, Rena, this is my whole deal. Threaten them. All right, y'all want to block it? Let's see what you're gonna do. Let's see if you want to stay in with Trump. And all you gotta do is say, all y'all voted for it before. But now he threatens veto. Now you're voting against. I say Democrats shouldn't budge and say, fine, try it. Try to veto it. Let's see what you're going to do.
I sure hope they get that courage. I mean, look, I don't have that much faith in today's Democratic Party. And I know that's a loaded statement right there, but I should just clarify and say the Democrats on the Hill have disappointed me at times. And this is what I mean about leadership. We need new and fresh leadership at times to step up and really get aggressive, because we shouldn't have to look at outside forces all the time to do the dirty work. What we've just seen for the past 4 years is so out of bounds, is so abnormal, that there should be Democrats in the top leadership, frankly, not, slapping the hands with some of these Republicans, not saying that everything's fine. I mean, look at Dianne Feinstein. She's now announced she's going to step down from the top post on the Judiciary Committee.
Because she knew she wasn't going to get it.
This is what I'm talking about when I say I've been disappointed in congressional Democrats, because it's just more of the same. It's saying, oh, we're all a club up here and y'all aren't in it. And so that's why I think we've landed up in this situation, because people have not taken the aggressive stances they've needed to take. Our elected leaders have failed us in that way at many times, because they're part of this exclusive club. And they're so worried about being out of that club that they forget that the people who put them in the club are the voters. So I think it's time we demand more aggressive stances. And I'm not saying be a radical, get in the streets and do all kinds of crazy things that scare other people. I'm just saying, when are you going to go for the jugular, Democrats? When are you going to actually call it like you see it? Because what I hear from conservatives all the time is saying, well, we don't want to rewrite history by toppling these Confederate monuments. They're just trying to rewrite history. Where do we stop? Where does it end? And I'm like, hold on. We rewrite history in all kinds of other ways. At what point did it start to threaten your whiteness that we want to talk about this person's crimes against humanity? So it's just very rich of really the Democrats sometimes who don't face up to what is reality, which are white Republicans time again pushing them back, saying stay in your lane. And it's all because of that insular, very country club feel that politics at the federal level as well as the state level still very much have to them. Until we push back on that and demand better of our leaders, like Senator Feinstein, who it's just a shame at this point in the twilight of her life she's doing this. But, again, they need to pay. They need to be accountable.
Folks, let's go to Florida, where 2 teens were killed by a Brevard County deputy on November 13th. The teens' families are now questioning the story told to them by the county's police department. New video has surfaced showing one of the teenagers killed in the ordeal was riding in the back seat of the car when shots were fired into the vehicle during an attempted traffic stop. This is raising questions over the story told by the deputy, who said his life was in danger and he had no choice but to shoot into a moving vehicle. However, lawyers and family members believe the deputy shot into the vehicle when it wasn't in motion and posed no threat to him or the other deputy on the scene. Take a look at the dash cam video that we've shown you several times. This is video there of the car driving down the street, approaching the car that carried 16-year-old A.J. Crooms and 18-year-old Sincere Pierce. Okay, so here's the deal. The video here has no sound. We're now going to switch to the video that actually has the sound so you can hear exactly what is being stated. That video was from the dash cam. This is actually video with the sound. Play it, please.
Stop the vehicle. Stop the vehicle. Stop the vehicle. Stop. 1033. Stop the vehicle, goddammit! Stop! Stop!
Now, what makes no sense there, again, windows were up. Who says they could actually hear him in the car? And then all the cop had to do was retreat behind the car, and then there are no issues. But like the other police officer did. In fact, roll the video again. I want y'all to see there are two police officers. The one on the left is the one who fired. The one on the right did not fire. Watch the actions of the police officer on the right. Watch this.
Stop the vehicle! Stop the vehicle!
Actually, do this here. Stop. Come back. All right, so do this here. I want y'all to do a real quick favor here. Pull the other video, because I want y'all to see what happens when the police officer, what she does is play the other video of them pulling up. You're going to see the police officer. Watch what she does. Go, y'all advance that, please. Watch what she does when she actually slides behind her car. She doesn't stand in front of a moving car. Right, pause it right here, folks. Pause it, pause it, pause it. Now, play it. You see what she does. Car's backing up. She goes on the opposite side of her car. She's on the opposite side, meaning the car's not charging towards her. The police officer who fired, his car is blocking the street. Why in the hell is he standing in front of the car? It makes no sense whatsoever. Mustafa, these are the actions that we're seeing, and these are the actions that when it comes to training that we're going to see come up, and I think it's going to play a role in what happens when it goes before a grand jury.
Yeah, I mean, it's another one of these unfortunate situations that we continue to see, and we always know that, unfortunately, once again, it is African Americans who are on the losing end of their engagements with police officers. Proper training would have taught them, to make sure you have a barrier in between yourself. And there's no reason to shoot into the car. It's not like someone had a window down, they were pointing a weapon at you or anything like that. This is a choice that this officer made. And then, you got to deal with the choices, that you choose. Unfortunately, those young men, they won't be able to continue to move forward and live their lives. But hopefully, folks will handle this in the courts properly and then begin to also make sure that other officers don't make these same tragic mistakes.
Oh, absolutely there. So, folks, we're certainly going to keep you updated. Again, A.J. Crooms and Sarah Pierce, the families have been trying to raise money to bury them, and that is just simply so sad. Coming up next, folks, going to go to a break. When we come back, we're going to talk with the author of a book dealing with the whole issue of, again, this fatigue factor that exists with all of these stories like this one here that's exhausting for so many people. That's next on Roland Martin Unfiltered.
There are so many things that have happened that if we don't see them for what they are, this is just going to continue to, get out of control. If I don't actually say, hey, I'm going to commit to registering 10 people to vote. Right. And that's the thing, I think, is we get so hung up on the big picture. Mm-hmm. The big picture matters, but it only matters when we all do small things. Right. That's how it happens. It's not, hey, let's just post on Twitter and post on Instagram, because yes, social media is huge, we know it, but we have to actually get out there and walk the walk.
The story we just showed you out of Florida, people are sick, tired of seeing those. Black people, young and old. Every day we hear these stories of folks being unjustly killed. Mary Frances Winters has a new book called Black Fatigue. Go ahead and pull it up, please. Black Fatigue, How Racism Erodes the Mind, Body. Drop the lower third, please. Thank you very much. How Racism Erodes the Mind, Body, and Spirit. Mary Frances Winters, thank you so very much for joining us. So many people, when we show those stories, when we show these videos, folks turn away because they say it is, frankly, some call it porn. Some people call it trauma, and just how difficult it is because we see it over and over and over again. Speak to the impact it's having on us as a people.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I wrote this book because I'm a baby boomer. I've been out here a long time, 36 years doing this work. I work in the corporate spaces. That's where I do my work, the Winters Group. And the millennials were telling me, and the Gen Zs were saying, we're tired, we're exhausted. And I'm like, you're 30 years old. How are you exhausted already? But, you're seeing this intergenerational exhaustion because over and over again. And then they have to go into these corporate spaces where people don't understand. After George Floyd, I was shocked that so many of the clients that we work with were saying, we didn't know racism was such an issue. Well, where have you been? Right. And so this fatigue of not only seeing these images over and over again, but then having to go into workplaces and spaces where people just don't understand. And we continue to be tokenized. We continue to be isolated and all of those things. We did a lot of studies and a lot of surveys around this time with organizations. And I could have just taken the name of one company and put the name of another company on, because Black folks in the corporate world were saying the exact same thing over and over again. We're tired. We're exhausted. Enough is enough.
So what do we do? What do we do like folks like us? I mean, look, we're a news show. We have to show this stuff. But also, it also raises awareness around the issue to demand justice. And so what do we do?
So I think, we're in a new movement. I think we're in a transformation. What I've been telling the people that I work with is that, no longer are we going to be able to sanitize the language. In my space, we talk about diversity, inclusion, and belonging. Those are like soft words. We're now talking about things like white supremacy culture. We're talking about things like power and privilege. We're talking about things like racial equity, which in the corporate spaces. Now, I know this has been talked about in social justice spaces, but this has not been talked about in corporate spaces, before. And so I think that's one thing, to change the language. I did an article some years ago, and it was called Race, Diversity's Four-Letter Word, because of all the diversity topics, race was the one that nobody wanted to talk about. And so now we're being forced to talk about it and, learning about the history of racism. We've done all this work in the corporate space. We go in and we do a little bit of history, and people, are saying, well, I never heard of the Tulsa massacre. I didn't know about the disproportionality in education. I didn't know about the disparate, when coronavirus came out, and everybody said, oh, you mean there's a disproportionality for Black folks? And people claiming that they didn't know. And so no longer can they say that they didn't know. So one thing we can do is continue to educate and not allow people to say that they feel shamed and blamed. Those executive orders that Trump tried to come out with indicated that we can't do this work because people will feel blamed and shamed. Well, that's not my problem if they feel blamed and shamed. We have to work through that, get past that, so that we can have these conversations. Another book I wrote called We Can't Talk About That at Work, How to Talk About Race, Religion, Politics, and Other Polarizing Topics. So we don't like to talk about it. We haven't talked about it. That's the first thing. And the second thing that I think we need to do is we need restorative justice in the corporate world. I was working with an organization, CEO, coaching a CEO. And as a result of, what happened with George Floyd and everything that ensued, and everybody now is interested in anti-racism, they did a study, and they had 32 Black people in the whole company, about 2,000 people, only 32 Black people. 16 of them were underpaid. They did a study. Now, why did you have to have a protest to recognize that your Black employees are underpaid? Right. And so interrogate that data, do something about it, make those changes. And I think now what's happening, folks in corporate America have felt muzzled. They don't feel muzzled anymore. This is their moment to speak, their moment to speak and require and demand justice, demand equity.
So the next phase, what should we be teaching the next generation in this moment when we're seeing these, with these stories that continue to happening? Because people want justice. They want someone to pay for these crimes. And not see an officer, no bill, then still put on administrative leave and nothing really happens.
Yeah, absolutely. Year after year, time after time, we keep seeing it over and over and over again. And I think that we should, we have to continue to tell our young people that they are worthy. We have to continue to tell them, not to accept, but, be safe, right? But not to accept, in the spaces that they're in, if they're in college, if they're in high school, to demand justice by asking the right questions. Why is this happening? I think that we need to teach our young people the history. I think we need to teach our young people to recognize, when you recognize racism, what does it look like? You know, if you're like your child in school, you're in elementary school, if you're raising your hand and trying to get the answer and then the teacher's not calling on you, you know, call that out. My daughter-in-law does work in schools where she does research, and the kids know. They tell her, they say in her research, they say, we know, we see the bias that the teachers have. We see that they don't call on us. You know, we see that they think we're stupid, right? We have to teach our children, you know, as hard as it is, we have to teach our children that they're not stupid. We have to teach our children to speak up and to make sure that they are getting justice one by one and collectively. You know, this has to be a collective effort. And I don't think as Black people, we do the collective effort enough. We're starting to, and we have, and don't get me wrong, I don't want your listeners to say, well, you know, we have all of these efforts that we've done over the centuries. I know that we have, but I think that we have to stay firm with it and continue because we are fatigued. We're tired. We are absolutely tired.
All right, then, Mary Frances Winters. The book, folks, please pull it up. It is called Black Fatigue, How Racism Erodes the Mind, Body, and Spirit by Mary Frances Winters. Mary Frances Winters, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much for having me. Be well.
All right, thank you so very much. Folks, you know what time it is.
No charcoal grills are allowed.
I'm white. I got you, huh?
Yeah, illegally selling water without a permit
On my property.
Whoa! Hey!
We don't live here.
I'm uncomfortable.
All right, y'all. White woman cusses out an 8-year-old Black kid riding his bike in the city. A brother said, nah, Karen, we ain't about to have that, not in our hood.
After he tried to hit me for the third time,
Why did he try to hit you? To an 8-year-old kid? You're defending yourself to an 8-year-old kid? Are you serious?
After he tried to hit me for the third
An
time,
8-year-old
yes, I
kid?
am.
You want to curse an 8-year-old kid out?
That is
If he
an
was a
act-
white kid, would you do that?
Yes,
would
I
you have
would.
said that to a little white kid?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Where do you get this? Where do kids get this barbaric information from that you can come in my community and talk to our kids like that? Because he's riding a motorcycle, a toy. He's riding a toy in your community, right? Where do they ride bikes at?
On the street.
Okay, but guess what? This is our community. This is their playground.
You're
You understand?
implying
This
that
is
I'm
their
not a part of this
playground.
community, and that's rude.
Excuse me?
You're implying that I'm not a part of this
Yeah, y'all
community.
came in here on the gentrification. This is where we born and raised all our life. This is our backyard. We don't have
backyard. Your
backyard.
neighborhood. I started spending money in your community. I started supporting your community. I am sorry that
What
you
do
and
money
I
have to do with character? What do money have to do with character? That's an 8-year-old kid. If his mother was here, y'all would be fighting. And you threatening her child.
your son incredibly poor character right now that he threatened a woman 3 times.
How?
The third
How
time.
did he threaten you?
Do you think that a child can't get hurt on that bike or
How
or
did he
another
threaten
person?
you? How did he threaten you though?
By going next to me on the sidewalk at a fast speed without any disregard for what
He deliberately did that. He deliberately did
3
that.
times.
How? How?
As I just said, tearing around the block without looking what he's doing, without seeing how fast people are walking next to him, without seeing how close they are.
You know what's sad? In a different day and time, things would be different.
Avis, my man was not letting her cuss out this little kid and get away with it.
And I'm so glad that he didn't. This is exactly what we need to do because, you know, when our children are out here, they have to face such harsh judgment by the rest of the world that could literally put their lives in danger or definitely at least hurt their spirit and their self-confidence and their love of self. And it's our responsibility to speak up for our kids. They don't have to literally be our children. I'm so glad that he stopped whatever he was doing to call her out on her abusive behavior towards an 8-year-old child. Because we need to let it be known that just because you've moved in our neighborhood doesn't mean you can go around acting crazy and not expect to have something come back at you.
Mustafa.
White children can be rambunctious. Our children are labeled as juvenile delinquents. And that comes from privilege and power. And you being able to make an 8-year-old child have to deal with a situation that an adult would have to deal with, because you know how they make the ages of young Black girls and young Black boys way before their time. We saw what happened with Tamir Rice. He was just a child, but they saw him as an adult.
Should have been 18. Should have been 18 years old yesterday, and Jordan Davis was killed 8 years ago today.
Yeah, so we have to, as Dr. Avis said, we have got to address this. You got to nip it in the bud. That if you're going to treat one child as a child, then we should treat all children as a child. And when you don't do that, you set up this spiraling set of actions throughout their life.
You broke up there. Finish your last comment because your audio broke up.
I was just saying, when we allow these types of behaviors to go on, where people are allowed to, say and do whatever they want to our children, it creates this spiral effect that follows kids throughout their life. One, they become afraid of people sometimes, or they become angry because the people are not seeing them as human. So we just can't allow this type of thing. I'm so glad that brother stood up and checked her and said, if you're going to be a part of this community, then act like you're a part of this community, and there's a way to interact with people.
And we've seen this, Rena, and numerous other stories where, again, how white kids are treated a lot differently than black kids. In this case, here's a white woman moving into a neighborhood that's been historically black. You might want to be real careful where you start trying to dictate what should be happening.
Yeah, I wish we had more self-awareness in society. I mean, I think that's one key ingredient that's missing from a lot of, I'll just say it, millennials, people like myself in 25 to 39, and a lot of younger parents I've seen these days, people around my age who know what it's like to feel, unsafe in one's neighborhood and to go into another neighborhood and feel othered. Well, why are these people moving into neighborhoods that they know have been historically one way? Why wouldn't they have the self-awareness to really behave in a manner that really meets the occasion? And I, at least as a mother, try to teach my children, because the color of their skin is brown and their father is far darker than them. I never know what people are going to think we are. So I always say, look, it's up to us to check ourselves, check if you're in the wrong, check if you've done something wrong. And I hate that I have to raise my children like that. I mean, I think it's an incredible time to have these conversations with young black and brown kids about how to really present oneself in society. I think it all stems from communication. It's how we take our message into other communities that are not used to our voices. And I'm thinking about this because just today I had a conversation with a white woman that was anti-Trump but grew up pretty right-leaning in Republican politics. And she said to me that she really had a moment when she heard Kamala Harris's acceptance speech. She said, I didn't really like it. And then she said, I checked myself at the end of it. She said, I said to myself, why didn't I like it? And she said, then I realized that this was a woman showing up authentically. And that's when something in her brain changed and she actually started to like Kamala Harris. She started to say, wow, how refreshing that a woman shows up in politics without looking like she's playing or she's participating in the same dog and pony show. She said, here's a woman showing up genuinely joyful, herself, authentic. And I thought that reminded me of something. And it reminded me that not everybody knows our experiences. Not everybody has met a black woman showing up authentically as herself and seen black joy and seen it in black women. Not everybody has seen that. And our country's going to see it now with Kamala Harris in the White House. So it's going to be incredibly different. I think it'll be something very positive for the country because we are a melting pot in this country. And people should check themselves often and say, well, look, what about that person and their experiences? We often don't put ourselves in someone else's shoes. So that little vignette today, it actually made me pretty happy that this woman looked at herself and checked herself to say, well, why didn't I recognize her for who she really is? And maybe in these moments, as we send our children into society, as they play with children of other backgrounds and whatnot, or maybe they don't, maybe you're in a homogenous community, but you travel. One day we'll travel again after COVID. But maybe that's something we will start to take as individual responsibility and part of something that we really value in ourselves as Americans.
Well, I will say this here. The white woman you're talking about, what they're used to is they're actually used to black people having to show up essentially in whiteface to make white people feel comfortable. And so what they can't handle and they're going to have to handle is black folks showing up the way black folks want to show up, which is very difficult for them. And so, again, so I get a kick, I'm really getting a kick out of I'm looking at all the people. This big brouhaha Steve Kornacki on MSNBC with his khaki pants. We're like, oh my God, like it's a whole thing. But I remember being on CNN and folks questioning, well, he's wearing bold pinstripe suits. Well, hell, look at so-and-so wearing some raggedy ass outfit. And again, it's whiteness. The reality is what we've had in America is white folks determining what the values are, what the whole view are. And in fact, that was a video. I wasn't going to show this. You know what? I'm going to hold that. I'm going to hold it for another day. Because it talked about, again, what the comedian Meaty, it was a great video where it was released today where he talked about how you can be basically a white guy who's a slob and you get all sorts of great roles. But if you black, oh, you got to be physically fit. You got to be like buff. You got to be perfect in order to be accepted by Hollywood because that's it. It's white standards. White standards that have actually determined America up to this point, and that's also what has to change. Folks, if you want to support what we do at Roland Martin Unfiltered, please join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar you give goes to support what we do with this show. We have been doing some great things here. We really got a lot of things that we're putting together. We're gonna, like I said, you heard me talk about, we're going to be in Georgia there. Put this whole thing together. I'm always sharing with y'all the stuff that we do. This is a video, some new equipment we got in, a bunch of our 4K cameras. The dollars that you have contributed makes this possible for us to buy this new gear. All of this here, folks, that's around $60,000 right there on that table. And so your contributions have made that possible. And so we certainly appreciate that. Please support us via Cash App, $RM Unfiltered. You also have PayPal.me/RM Unfiltered. Venmo.com is /RM Unfiltered. You have Zelle, which is Roland@RolandSMartin.com. You can send a money order to New Vision Media. That is 1625 K Street Northwest, Suite 400, Washington, D.C., 2006. You can give right there on YouTube as well. We have folks who supported us. Shout out to people who give it $50 or more. Carolyn Vaughn, Howard Lewis, Terrellyn A. Phillips, Miles, Vida Hughes, Gregory Smith, L.C. Simmons, James Gladney, Melinda McAfee, Walter Matthews, William Hall, Cheryl Dugan, Bill Holman Jr., Tanja Blostein, Kenneth Darby Jr. Thanks for y'all support with the show, folks. We're almost there. We want to get 20,000 donors by the end of the year. We now are over 15,000, and so please support us what you can. We're asking $50 each. That's about for the course of a year. That's $4.19 a month, 13 cents a day. If you could give less, that's fine. If you want to give more, that's fine as well. So we appreciate all that you give to make it possible for us to do what we do here at Roland Martin Unfiltered. We're going to leave the show with this. Billy Baldwin, the actor, sent me this. Some of y'all, when Mustafa was talking, y'all say, what's that horn I heard? Because he sent me this video. And I said, oh, my God, I got to play this here. Of course, we started the show talking about Trump losing in Michigan, Pennsylvania again. They're losing in court. The GSA has sent the letter saying President-elect Joe Biden. Well, she never didn't say actually in the letter, but that's what it is. So Billy Baldwin sent this email here. Y'all pull the music out. This is a perfect way to end today's show. Mustafa, Rena, and Avis, thank you so very much. Y'all, he sent me this, and I said, oh, my God, I got to play this. I'm going to see y'all tomorrow on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Holla.